Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. We have another amazing guest for you today, Alan Lazaros. At age 26, Alan experienced a near fatal car accident that led him to question his life's direction and ultimately go all in on self improvement. Now, as a speaker and a coach, he leads a global team and is committed to helping others achieve both success and fulfillment through a heart driven, no nonsense approach. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I always start with gratitude first. I think that's a really important principle. And it's an interesting thing, too, because you start out with gratitude and then you go to, even though I'm grateful for where I've ended up, I really, really, really am. And I'm grateful to be here. I also am still extremely, extremely driven to get to the next level. That's sort of the pun intended underneath sort of everything that I do. And so thank you for having me. I started listening to podcasts 9 years ago, and they really helped me after that car accident reorient my life in a better direction. And now I do that for a living. So at one point, this was a dream come true. So thank you for having me.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Alan. And just before we dive into it, we do like to have an icebreaker on this show. And your question today is which cartoon character do you resonate with the most and why?
Which cartoon character? You had mentioned that to me in the little pre-recording meeting that we had, and my brain didn't come up with anything specific except when I was young, I don't know if this is a cartoon character, it's a video game character, so I guess it's an animated character. When I was young, I really loved the video game Ocarina of Time, and Link was also the character that I played in Super Smash Brothers. So I would say probably Link, and then another one too. I'm nerding out here for a second. I loved the Halo series, and I was a semi-pro gamer actually in the Halo 1 and Halo 2 days. So for those of you who don't know, those are very, very, very famous Xbox games in the early 2000s. So I just dated myself quite a bit there.
Okay. No, I like those choices, I'm guessing the Master Chief and
Yes, yes.
yeah,
And
okay,
Link.
so yeah, that makes sense. And Link also makes a lot of sense, he in the original games, right? Link to the Past or the other one, right? Link was sort of in that fog, and he had to get that Master Sword to cut through the fog. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually think it kind of fits too. I like that one. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, Alan, and how you got to be where you are today?
Well, I think cutting through the fog is definitely uh, a cool metaphor for what has happened in my life as well. So the first thing that I want to share is I'm going to be 35. I always often joke I look 15. I'm going to be 36, I'm sorry, in November, so I'm 35 now. And I'm going to try to condense 35 years into a very short period of time. And whenever you try to do that, a lot of speakers don't say this. I do because I want to be different and I want to be more transparent. I had no idea. I don't want to say no idea. I had much less understanding of my story while I was going and growing through it. It's only in hindsight. I've done a lot of therapy in my 30s. I've rewatched the movie of my life metaphorically over and over and over again each year. And it's become more and more and more clear. So just understand that if this sounds like I had it all figured out, trust me, I didn't. We're all sort of on this metaphorical mountain that keeps getting higher as you climb it. So looking back, definitely grew up in a lot of adversity. Father passed away when he was 28, when I was 2. And I had an older sister who was 6. I had a mom who was 31. She was a stay-at-home mom. And after that, so my real last name is actually McCorkle. So my birth father, his name is John McCorkle. He was part of a big Irish Catholic family. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. So he had 5 siblings, all J. And when he passed away, my stepfather came into the mix, and my stepfather was Steve Lazarus. So I took my stepfather's last name, I think around age 7, but from age 3 to 14, I had a stepfather. At 14 years old, hardest year of my life, again, didn't know that at the time, although I did, I think, on some level. Stepfather leaves, takes not only 90% of the income with him, he got the apartment building and the yacht, we got the house and the dog. He worked for a company called AGFA that did hospital computers, and we did very, very well. And in the US in particular, but also globally, the 90s were wild boom times. And so everyone kind of did well, especially the people that my mom and stepdad hung out with. So we went from, like I said, Xbox, Dreamcast, early Christmas presents, boats, ski trips, snowmobiles. We had to basically, I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low. Our household income is so low. My mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. We're definitely not going to starve by any means, but I shop at Salvation Army and And I was a broke high school and college student, essentially, after my stepdad left. So I playfully refer to the years from 3 to 14 with my stepfather in the picture as boats and BS, ski trips and yachts and boats and all that kind of stuff. And they had a pleasure-centered paradigm. They had a lot of fun. They believed life was about fun. And so that created that, and they did not get along. And that's a polite way to put it on a public medium. Very polite way to put it. And so at 14, stepfather leaves, takes his entire extended family with him. I haven't seen a single one of them since. Not a single one. I have spoken to my stepdad on Facebook Messenger a little bit. Same year, 14, when I'm 14 years old, sister moves out, older sister, she moves out with her older boyfriend. Understandable. My mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, and, excuse me, thought I had to burp there, my apologies. My mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy and her sister, and my Aunt Sandy ostracizes us from that side of the family. So I did not really get this at the time, but in hindsight, it's very clear. I kind of lost 3 families by the time I'm 14, because when we were the Lazaroses, quote unquote, we didn't really associate much with the McCorkles anymore. And we since have reconnected, and that's all good. But essentially, by the time I'm 14, I kind of lost 3 families, and the scaffolding underneath my existence was sort of ripped out from under me in many regards, because none of that was really within my control as a young boy. And I went from deep sea fishing trips and ski trips and all that to my dream was to go to WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. It's kind of like a little mini MIT in Massachusetts. It's one of the best engineering colleges in the world. And it's $50,000 a year, and this is back then. And so I went from I hope I get into WPI to even if I do get in, I don't know how I'm going to afford it. And so there's 4 trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is the appease, the one most people don't know. I certainly didn't. So I became this sort of social coward who appeased everybody, and I tried to fit in and belong out of probably the abandonment challenges of all that. However, behind the scenes, when no one was watching, I don't know if I did this consciously, but I looked at my past pain. Okay, I looked at my present pain. Looked at my future. Okay, no dad, no trust fund, no one's going to save me. This future is not bright unless I make it that way. So I became this super achiever. Unconsciously, this was not a conscious choice. And it drove me. It drove me so much. So my trauma response behind the scenes when no one was watching was fight, which was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. And so I aimed as high as I could. I used to playfully argue with one of my close friends who was smarter, Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. And I had 2 main dreams, which I never used to share because I was too much of a coward. But my 2 main dreams were going to be lawyer, politician, president, or it was going to be engineer, MBA, CEO, like my hero at the time, Steve Jobs. And I had a bunch of other little dreams: pro gamer, video game company, model, snowboarding, basketball, like those kinds of things. But my serious ones were those 2. And I remember when I was 14, I had a mock court case, and I decided not to be a lawyer after that because I thought we did a great job and the jury went the other way. And believe it or not, that's actually my business partner today was in that class, which is wild to think about. But then I went all in on the engineering dream, and I got all the scholarships and financial aid I could. I bootstrapped all of high school. I got straight A's. I have what's behind me, the President's Award, signed by George W. Bush, which means you get straight A's through all of high school, 16 report cards straight. So I got all the awards and scholarships and financial aid. I got to go to WPI. I got my computer engineering degree, and then I got my master's in business, and then I was off to the races. And there was internships in between and stuff. But ultimately, 21st century computer engineer with an MBA background, I went from a broke high school and college student to I'm very sought after now. 65 to 85, 85 to 105, 105 to 125, 125 to almost 200. I peaked at 180 in my corporate career. So I was a global 1% earner in my early 20s. I didn't have any kids. I was living with my girlfriend at the time on a lake. I split the rent. It was $500 a month. I bought a $5,000 car, 2004 Volkswagen Passat, because to me, building wealth was just the answer unconsciously, because I didn't want anyone to be able to tell me what to do. And so I paid off 84 grand worth of college debt in a single year back in 2014. I had 150 grand in a Vanguard account, investment account with all different tech companies. And I was a computer engineer, so I kind of could see what companies were going to win. And I know how arrogant that might sound, but at the end of the day, I just get tech and I've always understood business. It's always been a pretty unconscious competency for me. Plus, obviously, I studied a lot. But fast forward to what you said in the bio, then I get in my car accident. So at this point, I'm working for a company called Cognex, and I manage a territory. We sell industrial automation equipment into manufacturing facilities across. So my territory was Vermont, Western Mass, and Connecticut. And I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. We're not drinking or partying. We're playing Call of Duty. It's back in 2015. And this is my second cousin. So the only person that's ever come back from my mom's side into my life, his name is Jeff. He has a son named Dan, little cousin Dan. And we're going to TGI Fridays, and I look down at the GPS. I look up, dark winter night in 2015. The snowbanks were covering the yield signs. I was supposed to yield. My fault. I didn't. I end up on the wrong side of the road in this dark through intersection. And I look up and I saw the brightest lights I'd ever seen. And two things saved my life. Number one, so I thought it was a Mack truck. The first thing that saved my life is it wasn't a Mack truck. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck. And if it was a Mack truck, I would not be here. The second thing that saved my life is thank you, Volkswagen. I mean, holy crap. The 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in cash because I was so used to being a broke high school and college kid that I didn't need much. And there's a lesson in that too. When you don't need a lot, you have this advantage because you don't have to constantly be buying things to make yourself feel better. I think if you're simple, I always said, if you learn to need nothing, you'll have everything. And now I realize there's nuances to that. But at the end of the day, I didn't need much. So this car saved my life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've since learned and researched this is one of the safest cars ever made. I used to call it the tank. 2004 Volkswagen Passat. It was a German-engineered steel trap of a car, and the whole front end was completely smashed in, but the frame stayed, and the airbags deployed. So he hurt his knee on the airbag, I hurt my face on the airbag, so physically we're okay. But mentally, emotionally, spiritually, my dad died in a car crash when he was 28. I've seen the pictures of his car, and I've seen the pictures of my car. They don't look very different, and so this is the second chance my dad never got. And so this is my quarter life existential crisis. What was the point? What did it all mean? Filled with regret. I mean, again, I say this, the amount of mistakes and poor choices that I made, statistically speaking, I don't think are more or less than any other young man. But I'll tell you what, I faced all the mistakes and all the poor choices and all the, what was this all for? I had my mortality moment when I was 26. And so I call it a quarter life crisis because a lot of people don't get that until their midlife crisis, quote unquote. And so I realize now in hindsight, this is only obvious in hindsight. Before 26, I was achievement oriented. I was improvement oriented. I was definitely gifted. I was intelligent. I was hardworking-ish, right? Definitely resting on my talent a bit. And I had high school friends and college friends and corporate friends, and my mom and stepdad loved to party, so I adopted that. And Cognex's motto was work hard, play hard, and I used to say work hard, play harder. And so I realized in hindsight I was improvement oriented and achievement oriented, but I wasn't self-improvement oriented. I wasn't personal development, personal growth. It wasn't about improving myself. It was about achievement. And I now flip the script after that. And this is almost 10 years ago now because I'm about to be 36 in November, which is wild to say, by the way. But I went all in on self-improvement after that. I didn't worry about achievement at all. And I actually went broke. Started my own company. And I went past broke, liquidated all my assets. And I was happy, healthy, productive, fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, achieving my dreams, loved myself for the first time, like fully, authentically, healthiest human you've ever seen. And before 26, definitely not. And I was super fulfilled internally, but I was broke. So I couldn't sustain it. And so before the car accident, I was successful externally and unfulfilled internally. After the car accident, I was fulfilled internally, eventually, and unsuccessful externally. And now I'm finally in a place in my life that I think all of us want to get to. And it took me till my 30s to do it. which is I want my future to be an amplified version of what it already is, because I am both successful externally, relatively speaking, and fulfilled internally. And I think that's ultimately what everyone wants. And I'm not just saying that because, like I told you, I coach 25 individuals currently right now from all over the world, all different countries, all different backgrounds, all different industries. And all of them have different goals and dreams. But ultimately, I think that's what we're all after. We're all after internal fulfillment and external success. And the external success is to sustain the lifestyle and the quality of life and the growth and the contribution that I think we all crave.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing that. It was sounds like certainly quite an interesting journey, and just to hit back on that, at 14 and being able to deal with all that along with the other, obviously, that age is very interesting to grow up in, right? Too, because you've got puberty, you've got school, you've got all these other things going on too.
Well, Chris,
Wow,
I
it's
didn't hit puberty until about 35, so I'm kidding. I'm hoping 36 is my year.
Yeah. And let's just go back there, and obviously you've had a lot of success, you've had a lot of challenges, but what do you think was your biggest challenge in all?
Facing my past, for sure. I think, and again, I'm not just saying this, I need to make it clear. I've coached for almost 10 years now. It was mentoring at first because I wasn't getting paid, and then it was coaching for the last 7 years. And you learn this over time because the more and more you coach people, particularly on becoming the best version of themselves, because that's what's underneath it, whether I was a business coach or a fitness coach or a mindset coach or a life coach or a peak performance coach or a business consultant, those are all the hats I wore over the years. Underneath it all was grow yourself to make your life better. That's really what it is. You just can't sell that. That's why I'm a business coach. It's what people want is to grow their business. What they need is to grow themselves. But facing my past was the hardest. And I say now that there's two types of people. And I don't want to overly categorize, but I think it's valuable to understand which one you're in. The first bucket of individual is someone who really, really struggles with competence. Someone who doesn't feel smart enough, doesn't feel good enough, doesn't feel capable enough, doesn't feel like they can succeed. They struggle to write a good resume and they struggle to get good at stuff. That's a competence issue. And usually there's two types of courage. The first type of courage is competence courage. That's what I call it, competence courage. So for me, and I want to be as transparent as I can about this, not because I want to brag about me, but because I need to make sure I tell the truth. All progress begins with telling the truth. I was fairly gifted when it comes to being good at things. And I didn't know, I think I knew it as a kid, and then I kind of pretended it wasn't true when I was a teenager to 20s. And then I am revisiting that now. And the truth is, not everyone's created equal when it comes to competence. When it comes to intrinsic spiritual, everyone is equal. I understand that. When it comes to, if you think you're gifted genetically in sports, you got to go play basketball with LeBron James. You got to get in rooms that make you realize like, oh, I don't have that same thing, even no matter how hard I work, right? And so I want to make this clear. I think some people who don't feel gifted in the competence arena, I think they struggle with a belief that, and this is what I've studied in coaching, that they're not smart enough or not good enough or not capable enough. And what they really need is more self-belief. They need someone to believe in them. They need someone to push them. They need someone to say it's okay to fail forward. These people are usually very afraid of failure. They're very afraid to be seen as a failure. And they're the higher percentage of the population. I researched this before a monthly meetup in January of this year, 2024. We did a monthly meetup. We do them every month. And this one was on setting clear goals for 2024. And the latest research shows that 96% of people, only 4% of individuals have written goals, and only 8% of them ever achieve them. And so for me, I've never not had written goals, and I've never not achieved them. And as arrogant as that might sound to someone, particularly in this bucket, I want to be honest with you. So to me, what that says is that only 4% of people really believe in their competence. Because if you're competent and you have a growth mindset and you're willing to be a student and get mentors and coaches, you really can achieve a lot. It's really doable, more doable than maybe you think. That said, if you have this constant fear of I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, and you lack the ability to be a student because you're so afraid to be seen as less than, you're not going to get the coaches and mentors that you need. So that's bucket one, competence, courage. Those people need to have the courage to apply to the job, not one job, 50 jobs, right? Keep failing forward. Those people need to learn how to fail forward and iterate and improve along the way. Okay, so for me, I want to be transparent. That was not my issue. Failing forward is what I've always done. That is what it is. Show up, resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, like that's all fine. I didn't apply to one job. I applied to hundreds of jobs, right? And then I ended up getting 30 interviews. And then of those 30 interviews, 10 of them I got the job. And then I got to negotiate the contract and all that. So, but a lot of people apply to 3 jobs, don't get any of them, and then think they suck. When in reality, the people that are winning applied to 300 jobs and they look successful, but you don't see all the failure behind the scenes. So that's bucket one. That's 96% of the population based on my current awareness. Need self-belief, need competence, courage. All right, the other bucket is where I am, and I am an absolute social coward. These are the people that are actually very competent and very intelligent and very capable, so much in fact that they dial it down for everybody. So I'm fighting my nature to dial it down because I don't like to make others uncomfortable. And I realized in my 30s, you're trying to help people grow, yet you don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. And I realized that was a losing game. And so I have a business partner named Kevin, and he and I give speeches together. And this is how I learned this. We'd both give a speech in front of 300 people. He'd be afraid he was going to suck, but he knew everyone would laugh and like him. I knew I'd crush the speech, but I was afraid everyone was going to hate me. Got it. He has the competence issue. I know I can get people thinking differently. I know I can change your life. That's not even a question. The question is, are you going to hate me so much that you don't listen, therefore I can't help you? And so I'm not a very likable person. And the reason why is I'm on high statistical bell curve end of almost everything. And people can tell, like, ooh, you don't struggle with what I struggle with. And I used to be too much of a coward to admit that to myself and certainly don't say it out loud. And I never used to call myself gifted. I used to hide that. No, I'm normal. I'm regular. No, I'm normal. But people know you're full of it because they know that you are, and they know that you don't struggle with what they struggle with. So for the 4% out there who I believe are in this second bucket, you need social courage. I was such a courageous individual with competence. Do the thing, crush it, try the thing, apply to 300 jobs. That was no problem. Apply to the school, write the resume, do the cover letter, whatever. What was the issue for me was socially. Socially, I was such a coward. I couldn't authentically say what I actually believe. And so Kevin has this quote for these 2 buckets. He says, you're either afraid, all of us, all human beings are fear driven. We all have fears. Just turns out we're not afraid of the same thing. You are either afraid that all of you is not enough, or you are afraid that all of you is too effing much. I'm the second one by a long shot. This is me dialed down. Most people in the first bucket think I'm dialing up and that it's ego. This is me actually dialed down. This is me hiding a lot of my drive, believe it or not. And so the second bucket, if you're in it, you're on the lesser part of the population, but you need social courage. You need to actually have the courage to shine. You need to have the courage to call someone out when they say something stupid. Engineers deal with this all the time because engineers, statistically speaking, are much smarter than the general population, myself included. But we're too cowardly to actually call out some of the idiot managers who don't actually know tech. And then the company goes down a direction and here's the deal, right? I worked in product management, so I'll be brief with this, but this product manager might as well be, here's all the responsibility with none of the authority. And I have to work with the quality engineers, the product engineers, the manufacturing engineers. I have to work with marketing. I have to work with everybody. I have to work with the chief officers. I'm responsible for $80 million of revenue per year, and I have no authority. So I had to marketing talks to the engineers talk to marketing. No one knows what anyone's saying. Engineers don't understand humans, and marketers don't understand tech, right? And again, I'm generalizing, but I realized that I was the bridge. And the reason I became the bridge is because growing up, I had to constantly try to fit in after my stepdad left. because I didn't want to be abandoned. And so that became a superpower. Now I'm one of the very few engineers who I think intellectually understands math and to the extent of signal analysis and calc and all that, but who also can talk to humans. And so most tech products are engineers building products for other engineers, which is why Steve Jobs was so powerful, because he was smart enough to understand the tech, but also understood human beings enough to actually transcode it into something people want. That's why the 1,000 songs in your pocket. And so I'm sort of this weird esoteric math thinking guy who is trying to bring value to people who just quite frankly don't understand themselves, the world, or other people enough to actually succeed, but yet turns everyone off with his quote unquote ego, when in reality it's actually me too fearful to actually own who I really am. And so I think that that's where I would start with everybody, is which one of those are you? If you are competence cowardly, you need to have more courage and shoot more shots. If you are social cowardly, you most likely are dimming your light all the time and no one actually knows how great you are, because you're constantly dialing down around other people and then doing awesome things behind the scenes and then giving other people credit for it because you're actually afraid of the spotlight. And that was definitely me.
Thanks for sharing that. That is definitely interesting, and it reminds me of all this the simplification of I had a joke just as an aside here real quick. There's this very, very smart guy, went to Harvard. He's got like 4 different psychology degrees. And he said, $300,000 in education, $75,000 in books, $20,000 in lectures or something. He says, all in all, like $500,000. And then he says, you want to know, so takes out a cocktail napkin, writes down 2 things. He says, there you go, $500,000 worth of education for you. It was 2 points: pain, pleasure.
Nice. Well, that's it too, is we're all wired a certain way based on, I think there's 2 worlds. I'll go brief with it, but the first world is the real world. This is who you are and what you are when no one's watching. This is I call them real world metrics versus vanity metrics. So a vanity metric is you drive a Ferrari even though you're broke, because you want to be perceived as high social status, and you want to be perceived as valuable. Someone behind the scenes who doesn't have a Ferrari drives a Toyota, but they're in great shape. But they don't show it off necessarily, right? So you have the real world and you have the social world, and they're actually very different. They're alarmingly different, actually. And that's been really hard to realize, because quite frankly, before 26, before my car accident, I actually had a lot of social status despite me being such a coward, because I had a lot of what people value. I made a lot of money. I had a gorgeous girlfriend. Like, I looked like I was winning, I think, more than I really was fulfilled inside. And now that I've become more fulfilled inside, and in the real world, I'm infinitely more than I was. It's not even close. I actually have less friends. I'm less relatable. I'm less likable. It's actually been really hard for me to realize that. I actually used to be naive enough to think that when I got better, I would be more liked. And it's the opposite. It's actually been the opposite. It's been really hard. And yeah, we have listeners all over the world, and I think I'm sought after and admired, and I'm grateful. I really am. However, in my personal life, very, very, very few people want to be around someone who's always reaching for their potential, always getting after it, always motivated, always in the gym, always building, always tracking, always. It's very exhausting for a lot of people. And so those 2 types of people I mentioned earlier, they trigger each other. The people who are super competent trigger the people that feel incompetent. And the people that feel incompetent trigger the cowardice of the social cowards like me. And they make us feel like we're not liked or loved. And it's called a defective and an unlovable if you look at the psychology. So I have the unlovable for sure, which is I don't struggle a ton with self-doubt when it comes to competence, but I do feel like it's relationships are super hard for me. They always have been, until I met my beautiful girlfriend Emilia, who is not only a freaking genius and the most driven person I've ever met in my life. However, she had the same issues I had with being a social coward and kind of dimming her light all the time and that kind of thing. And so she's the one person I've met where I don't feel too much for her at all. I feel, if anything, I need to grow more and expand more and work harder to be with her, versus in the past, it always felt like I was too much. It always felt like I was just too intense, too driven, too focused, too smart, too concerned, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to maximize my potential. I want to reach my full potential. And for those of you who resonate with that, you'll like me a lot. But for those of you who want to hang out, you're not going to like me. And that's okay. That's okay. This is the first time in my life I can say that's okay.
Well, just being thank you once again for sharing, Alan. It's difficult to share that sort of thing sometimes. Call it the witch wound, or social awkwardness, or fears around that. Many of us have them. That's why social media needs to go away, but that's a whole other story. Um, just being respectful of your time here. I know that you mentioned you got something you need to get to. Um, is there anything that you feel I should have asked, or maybe we should have covered that we didn't cover here today?
The only thing is what you and I talked about behind the scenes, which was everyone deals with procrastination. You're not alone in that. And these people who seem so fearless to you, what if they're just confident in an area you're not? So, for example, my business partner, Kev, has a different core wound than me. We both grew up without dads. We both are from a very, very, very humble beginnings in terms of challenges and adversity. My goodness. However, we have different core wounds. So what he's afraid of, I'm not afraid of. And what I'm afraid of, he's not afraid of. So it's really helped us understand, okay, so for example, he said, dude, that's not going to land. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, people don't believe in themselves as much as you do. I had never even thought about it. I had never once thought, he's like, how did you know we'd succeed? And I said, you can't add that much value to that many people for that long and get that good at something and not eventually succeed. And he's like, that's not going to land for anyone else. And I'm like, why? He said, because they don't believe in themselves like you do. And I said, I had never really thought about it. Everyone around me mirrors me, so they act like they have these huge goals and dreams. And he said, Alan, a lot of them are just talking. And over the years, I've realized that, because now that I'm older, when you're a kid, everyone has goals and dreams. I want to be an astronaut, and I want to be, and then you get older and older and older and realize that most of your friends that were saying they had these dreams, they actually were just talking when you actually meant it. I never said it without intending on it. Yeah, maybe I changed my mind, but I never said it just to say it. It was always actually reverse engineered. And I realize now I'm the esoteric weirdo. It's not them. And so everyone that's out there, you just realize that there are some people who seem like they win at everything. They are still afraid too. And by the way, they have every upside has a downside. So yeah, they're very competent and they're very capable, but you have no idea what it's like and how lonely they feel, because they feel so ostracized by social circles. Like, imagine Kobe Bryant at a barbecue. No one understands that level. And I don't think, I mean, it's awesome to win championships, and RIP, I know Kobe Bryant passed away. And again, I don't want you to associate me with Kobe Bryant. I don't want anyone associating me with anyone, to be honest. I just use him as an example because people know him. And he's obviously someone who doesn't struggle with competence, courage. Okay. But he definitely struggles with social courage. I'm sure he struggles in relationships and always has. He's probably been misunderstood his entire life, right? So regardless of Kobe or Elon or Steve or any of these people that have quote unquote changed the world, they have something that you don't, and that's true. And they don't struggle with self-doubt as much as you do. They just don't. I'll be honest. It's hard for me to say that, but they don't. But I'll tell you what, they still have massive pain and suffering when it comes to being relatable, when it comes to being hated for what seems like no reason, when it comes to being infallible, and they have insecurities just like you do. They're just different. And so we all have a core wound. We're all on our own metaphorical mountain that gets higher as you climb it. And we all procrastinate in certain things. For me, I procrastinate shield bumping certain things, or standing up to my family, or setting boundaries. Or for me, the courage is social. For you, maybe the courage is competence. And yeah, that's what I would end with, which is just figure out which one you are and then spend your life trying to face those fears. And then you become this person who is both righty and lefty and doesn't feel trapped by their own inadequacies and their own self-doubt. Because I have self-doubt socially, you have self-doubt competence. Maybe it's the other way around, but if you overcome that you can build self-belief and self-worth. You can be professionally developed and personally developed, and you can have great relationships and be successful, because most of the really, really, really elite successful people out there do end up divorced. And I always said I didn't want to end up that way. And I knew that I would have to develop the other side of the equation, which is empathy and vulnerability and humility and social courage and having hard conversations and emotional intelligence. None of that came naturally for me. The science, technology, engineering, business, and finance, that's all there. So that's always been easy for me. And so what do? We go toward easy, and then we end up lopsided and then wonder why we're not holistically fulfilled.
No, yeah, that's excuse me. That is a some very good insights there, and once again, thank you for your time and sharing those. Just before we go, Alan, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out if they have questions or they want to touch base?
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you for having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So you and I had mentioned this off air. The next level you is pun intended. So the next level version of you, I'm going to be 36 in November. So Alan version 3.6. I'm a computer engineer, so forgive me, I think, in that term. And the iPhone 14 or 15 that's out, can you imagine comparing that to the original iPhone? What was once a revolutionary breakthrough is now garbage in comparison. That can be you in a decade. And so if you want to reach your full potential, I'm your guy. The truth is, if you don't, please don't reach out, because I'm not going to be of value to you. But if you do really want to reach your potential, please reach out. You can email me. You can find me on social media. You can Google my name. We have 3 podcasts. We have Next Level U, Next Level University. We have Podcast Growth U, and then we have Business Growth U that I'm starting. Grow yourself, grow your podcast, grow your business. We help our clients with that. We produce 50 shows, including 3 of my own. I coach 25 individuals, business coaching, and you can reach out. So nextleveluniverse.com, nextleveluniverse.com, spelled just like it sounds. And then the main podcast, the 1800 episode one, is Next Level University. Learn how to reach your potential holistically. And if you do reach out, please just provide context, because like all of us, I get a lot of spam.
All right. Well, once again, Alan, thank you for being on the show. To all our listeners, don't worry, we'll put that in the description there, so you won't have to feel like you need to write that down. And thanks again for listening. And just remember, if you can't find that inspiration or motivation for yourself today, maybe just be that motivation or inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.